Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it and give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Subscribe to that as well.
We're sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
Yes, we are. They're the sponsor of the podcast, sponsor of the YouTube channel. Go make yourself a cocktail.
Try a Tito's kickoff with OJ soda water and some Tito's. Don't forget, savor response. You know, you got Zeus, I think is what Orlando Brown's nickname is. You got Zeus at left tackle. You got Thuney at left guard. You got Creed Humphrey at center. You got this rookie, Trey Smith at right guard, and Lucas Niang, who opted out last year. I'm like, at right tackle. I'm like, holy, what is going on with this Chiefs? Like, let me do it. I know about Thuney and Orlando Brown, but what about the other three guys? So, right, Creed Humphrey's the second-round center, kind of like another Landon Dickerson, not hurt, but second-round center who had played in some huge games out of Oklahoma. Trey Smith, the sixth-rounder, is a rookie. You got more intel on him. And then Niang was a third-rounder in 2020 out of TCU who opted out last year. So now he's making his debut at right tackle. And I just started thinking, like, the Chiefs had a weakness, and they still got to the Super Bowl. Now, their weakness became weaker as the season went on, and it really showed itself in the Super Bowl. They tried to sign Trent Williams, couldn't do it, pivoted. They've got this line with three rookies, and the other guy, Thuney, has a 5-year contract. So if this thing works, they've addressed their one weakness and have, like, locked up that weakness for 4 years. I would have, we'll see. I would imagine they'll pay Orlando Brown too. I mean, the quarterback was 38 touchdowns, 6 picks last year, John. And if this line works and this whole thing is put together like this, their line is set for another 4 or 5.
Well, they made a bold move when they made the trade for Zeus, who I actually think his dad, maybe he goes by Zeus too. Zeus, his dad, who played for the Browns, who Pat Hill found, and Belichick, it's like a kind of put him on the map, Coach Hill, as like an undrafted free agent. He was massive. And his kid, he's good, right? Last year, Ronnie Stanley, they moved him to left tackle, and the Chiefs pivoted once they didn't get Trent Williams. Peter Schrager has talked about this on, I've heard him on like Colin's show talk about this. Trey Smith, the right guard, because like they're center. Like you draft a guy in the second round. I say the same thing about Aaron Banks. Like I draft a second round offensive lineman. I'm drafting that guy to be my starting offensive lineman week 1. I just am. And you can say, well, John, the history of the league. Someone sent me a DM like Jesse Sapola took him 3 years to become a starter. Like yeah, guys, you're talking about fucking 1982. If you draft a guy in 2021 in the second round, I think in your draft room you're like talking about, can this guy be, especially when the position is open, right? You go, yeah, this guy can be the starter. That's how the Chiefs talked, and he became the starter. The right guard, it's pretty crazy story. 3-time All-SEC offensive guard. Google the SEC's defensive tackles. I don't know. They all go in the first round, typically, the good ones. He was back-to-back first team, and 3 years ago, he was a second team. Now, he had some blood clot issues. And we know, because we see sometimes, right, certain things at the combine medical check freak teams out. And that is something that's probably, I'm sure a lot of doctors, who knows, maybe you think that it's an issue that could come back. But when you look, he's played. I would completely understand and be like, God, they got kind of lucky. This guy hadn't played in 2 years. They just took a complete flyer. They didn't take a flyer. He's been their starting right guard at Tennessee for years, right? Now, he had the issue, and he missed, 2018. But if you then play back-to-back seasons, like that to me could be, again, Schrager, who is, trust me, is very tight with Veach and just texting around. They are smitten on this guy. I got a text like, you should see this motherfucker at practice.
I mean,
also guy, who do you think who does he go up against at practice? I don't know. They got this guy named Chris Jones. Like, he's good. So if his blood clots are not an issue, like when he plays, he dominates. Like Kyle Long. If Kyle Long's not going to play for this team, right? They got Thuney, who they paid huge money, and if this guy's good, like Kyle Long's a backup. I know he's injured right now.
And tackle.
This guy is just like.
John, let's tell the people about DraftKings. Sign up at DraftKings right now with the promo code HAM and get in our game. It's linked in the description below.
How about a good night's sleep with our friends at sleepnumber.com/ham? Biggest sale of the year right now, sleepnumber.com/ham. I just don't. I'd have to do some more research with other teams. Like, how did you guys not like? Why wouldn't you take a flyer on an All SEC offensive lineman in like the fifth
round, right? I mean, because if he's unless they had another pick in the sixth, he's the second to last pick of the sixth round.
I do wonder if just a large percentage of teams just completely failed him.
Took him off the board completely.
For the medical.
Yeah.
You better be careful with that, though. Because let's just say, if this guy starts 3 years and he never gets a second contract, he's well worth the 6th-round pick.
Yeah, it's one thing to take a guy off and you don't – who was the linebacker that was it Jalen Smith?
Reuben.
Well, there's Reuben, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did anyone have Jalen Smith off their board? Maybe. It's like, well, okay,
I think a lot of teams did.
Okay, yeah, and I understand. You don't want to take him in the second round. In the 6th?
Yeah.
He was not.
In my draft room, I think we'd start talking like early 5. Do we trade up to get this guy?
Did they trade up for him?
Well, there are compensatory picks.
So that's what he was.
Round.
He was a comp 6th, John. So he was almost a 7th round. He was the 3rd to last pick of the 6th round, if you count the comps.
He's a guy to keep an eye on because if he's really good for them, like he'll immediately be one of the best late round picks in this draft.
Like, okay, he's off your board. Sam Ehlinger went ahead of him. Is Sam Ehlinger going to be an NFL quarterback?
No. I mean, guy, you start taking fly. The Niners took Jalen Hurd in the 3rd. Like, you could argue flyers. Could we start taking flyers in the 4th? Remember we had this argument when the Niners took Wisnowski, and everyone's like, you can't take a punter in the 4th. Like, a punter in the 4th, or maybe he's a kicker. Is he a kicker?
He's a punter.
No, he kicks off, and he's the punter.
Yeah.
It's like, once we get to the 3rd day in the draft, you can do whatever you want. If you want to give Jason Light shit for Aguayo, taking him too high in the 2nd round, that's fair. But once you get to Saturday morning of the draft where they're going to zoos and you can take whoever you want at any point in time. Because Wisnowski is a good example. And a lot of people did complain about that.
Yep.
They got their starting punter in the 4th round. I'll do that all day long. Like that does matter. But a starting offensive lineman, I'd be fascinated. You need like Albert Breer or Peter King to do if this guy turns out to be really good. Let's just say he's a Pro Bowler year 1. Like we need an in-depth study on like how many why teams is like everyone going to point like Nick Saban did at Danny Cannell's dad like it was his fault.
Blame the doctor.
Because in fairness, if you and me are GMs, this is where it is hard. If we're running a front office and Dr. Johnson walks in and he goes, okay, so-and-so, Trey Smith, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Same as Will Smith's son.
Blood clots. I just think it's going to be a major issue, and at any moment his career could end. And you'd be like, okay, I'm not a dub. Okay, take him off the board. Or it's like, I really like this guy. Are you sure? Are you allowed to do second opinions to your doctor? Like, can we reach out to another doctor? Or are you second opinions only happen when you need the surgery and then you go second opinion? If the doctor's standing there, you can't reach out to another doctor friend. Because there has to be.
I think doctors. On one hand, you'd think doctors would be offended by that. On the other hand, it's like, no, I want this. I believe what I'm giving you as a diagnosis, and it's going to be confirmed when somebody else gives it to you.
A longtime general manager, like if you were just bullshitting with like Ozzie Newsome, a guy who's had like decades worth of drafts. Like how many times did you and the doctor disagree, and you just disagreed from like, are we sure? And then he turned out to be wrong, and like, how do you shake that? Especially like in a couple years.
Well, the doctor says, no, I'm not sure. You're the one. I'm just telling you it's a 60% chance based on the guessing that I'm doing, right? Because doctors are, I would imagine there's not a lot of 100% chance it's not going to ever work, right? Doctors probably don't tell GMs that. Why would they back themselves into that corner?
Well, I mean, we're going through it kind of right now with Corona. Nothing is like black and white, right? When you talk to the medical field, they kind of leave their way. Like most human beings, right, in the private sector, it's kind of black and white. And the doctor community, that's not really what they do, right? So but the problem is they have so much more knowledge than you. You can call them out, but you don't really know what you're talking about, right? You're like, well, can we just give the guy pills, right? Can we hydrate him? Like, what do you even say back? And the answer's like,
yeah, that might work.
Yeah.
Right? That's probably the answer. It could work.